Hi, and welcome to this week's edition of King Values videos. So today we're going to talk about the N in the acronym KING, which stands for notice. And it's something we don't do very well. We don't notice what's around us, or sometimes we don't notice what's not around us. This is probably something that I haven't done very well in the past. I tend to have looked back in the past or looked too much to the future instead of actually living in today's moment and what's happening right now. So today we're going to talk about happiness and why we don't choose to be happy. Instead, we choose to chase happiness. So the first important point that I have noticed is we tend to compare. We compare ourselves with everything around us and everybody around us. We look at the neighbours and we say, they've got a great car in the driveway, or they've just put on the new extension, or they've got a pool. And then we go, I'm somehow inadequate because I don't have what they have. Or we tend to look at our work colleagues and what they drive, the type of car they drive, the type of suit they wear, whatever it may be. And again, we start comparing and looking at that and thinking, they're somehow better off than me. They've somehow done better than me. They are somehow better than me. And most of it, if we really look at it and we really notice, is actually a fallacy. So let's dive into that today. So first up, I'd like to talk about this great book. It's called The Millionaire Next Door. And it's written by Thomas Stanley and William Danko. Both have PhDs, so we can assume that they're pretty reasonably versed in this area. And what they did a massive study of millionaires, mostly in the US. It's first published in 1996, so the data's a little bit out of date, but it still holds true to what's happening today. And what they basically did, they went out and they interviewed and they got a lot of factual research about America's millionaires, who they were, what they drove, how they got there, basically the day-to-day aspects. Now, I know when I first read it, it was a bit of an eye-opening read, exactly who millionaires were and what they did. It surprised me a lot because we have these massive assumptions they're driving around in Ferraris and sailing around in yachts, but they're actually just regular, everyday people. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today, but that's not really what this video is about. So in the book, they talk about Australia, and that's where I'm from. And it's the third most wealthy country in the nation. And I think I saw a statistic the other day that it's actually now number one, and it was behind Israel and Latvia, surprisingly, as the two countries that were richer. They go and talk about how most millionaires have actually got dull professions. They're welding contractors, they are in pest control, paving contractors, and they've done that. So it's not really they're a stockbroker or they're a lawyer or a doctor, although they're great paying professions. But the majority of people who are millionaires that have kept their money come from these sort of more humble backgrounds. They found that 80% of the millionaires they surveyed were actually self-made, with only 20% of them getting their money, or majority of their money, from inheritance. Another thing that I found really interesting was the total annual income from most of these millionaires were only 7% of their annual wealth. So basically means they weren't earning their money, it was coming from some other means that they'd obviously previously set up. Most millionaires were living below their means, which means they were spending less than what they were earning. And with the money left over, they were investing. Another interesting fact I found was that 15 to 20% of their income they were putting or diverting to investments. So you can see that the perception of a millionaire is very different than the actual facts. And I suppose that's a crucial thing that I want you to notice as we talk in this video about happiness. So if you're watching this video, I would imagine you're the type of person who wants more for yourself, or you're looking for that edge. So let's take your facts, because you know yourself better than what I do. How rich am I calculator that I've just Google searched. So I'm in Australia, so we'll use that as an example. If you earn 50,000 Australian dollars, you'll actually be in the top 3.5% of the world's global population. You're actually 12.4% better than the global median, which basically means you earn 12.4% more than what the average of the world is. And that's pretty amazing, just for being born in Australia and earning $50,000. If you were to up that, you say, I've got a pretty decent job and I earn $80,000 a year. Suddenly, you're in the richest 1.2% of the entire world, and you're 19.8% better off than the average income of the world. But if you could get to 100,000 Australian dollars, and that's not an outrageous figure, you're the top 1% of earners in the world, and you're earning 25 times the global median wage. So think about that for a second when you're going, poor me, I'm not earning as much as everyone else. You're actually probably earning considerably more than everyone else, because this takes into account that goat herder in Africa, the guy who's fishing in Sri Lanka. So you're already incredibly lucky. And on top of that, most likely you've probably earned it yourself. You haven't inherited it. So again, you've earned that mindset as opposed to a lottery winner who just got it. And you've all heard the millions of stories about lottery winners who've just thrown it away, done nothing with their lives, and turned around and said later, that was the worst thing that ever happened to me in life, which we hear as people wanting more and going, how could that possibly be right? I suppose what I'm trying to get to is we've kind of forgotten that we've already won the lottery of life. Your great-great-grandfather walked across the room and asked your great-great-grandmother for a dance. Your grandmother was lucky not to get hit by that car when she was in her 20s. And what about all the girls that your father dated before he met your mother and had you? So the probability of you even being born at all is so small you can't even calculate it. So here we are, deep into the video, and we still haven't discussed happiness properly. So let's go back to the original question, which was, why do we choose not to be happy and instead spend our lives chasing happiness? So Anthony Robbins once told a story that I think encapsulates that whole reason. So he and his wife were going to go on holidays one time, and they were going to head to Fiji. First of all, they had to get their suitcases and pack up all their clothes, and they weren't quite sure, we're going to pack up all the summer clothes. What happens if it gets cold? So they eventually packed up all their clothes, then they had to work out how they're going to get to the airport, and then they got to the airport, and then they had to queue up and wait there, and they're getting frustrated because it wasn't running as smoothly as they thought it was going to be. And they finally got in, and they had something to eat, and they got on the plane, and the plane was delayed, and they're kind of waiting and waiting and waiting, thinking, well, it's going to happen soon. And the plane took off and finally got to Fiji, and then they had to find out, how do we get a vehicle to get to our hotel? And they got to the hotel, and it wasn't quite what they expected, not what they'd actually booked. They were a little bit argumentative, and they were trying to argue with the management, this is not what they want, and they finally got an upgrade. But yeah, then they got changed, and they went down to the beach, and the beach was not quite what they wanted, but that was all right. And they got down to the beach, and they got in the water, and they walked all the way out into the water, and then finally they turned to one another, and they said, now we can be happy. And I think that kind of sums up the whole thing. At every stage in that journey, they could have chosen to be happy. How many people pack up their suitcases and have the dilemma of how many different clothes can I put in? What about that poor African farmer who doesn't have the option of, I've got this and this and this and this and this to pack, let alone actually going on a holiday? There's so many options to be happy. The hotel, they flew on a plane. And how many people don't get the option to fly on planes? Just simply because they don't have the income, they don't have the time, they don't have the inclination. So many reasons. It's actually an amazing thing to be able to go to the airport, jump on a plane, and go to where you want to go. That's incredible, but we take it for granted. So instead of being happy at every single one of these individual moments, we can turn it into, this is not quite what my perception of this moment should be. So when we think to ourselves, poor me, or maybe one day, we're comparing ourselves, but not to everyone else. We're not including that poor goat herder in Africa. We're not including the fisherman in Sri Lanka that has nothing. And they're just happy when they bring in the fish and have enough food to feed their family and have a roof over their heads. Or simple achievements make them happy. Yet our achievements are so massive, so broad, with so many different steps, that if we don't hit one, suddenly we're not happy. So now I'm not trying to be all woo-woo and saying you need to be happy at every single moment of your life. But what I am saying is, why don't we take a moment to be grateful for all the things we have done, have achieved, and the moment that we're actually in right now. Here I am, sitting in my house, with air conditioning. I mean, look at this, I can control the weather. All the books, so many different things I can do, so many options in life. Why can I not be happy? So it's very easy to fall into the trap of, but I don't have money, so I have to wait. But don't let others influence you and your perception of your happiness. Think about this. How much personally would you save if you didn't care what other people thought? If you didn't care if you're wearing a nice shirt? If you didn't care about where you live or the nice car, or you've got the ego boost of going, I'm a doctor or a lawyer, or I have this particular job. You just actually focused on the things that really made you happy and just did those every day. Or even if you didn't do the whole life of this, you actually managed to carve out time every day just to spend time to make yourself happy. But if we take it back to N for notice, you'll actually notice and become a lot more self-aware of what's around you and what can truly make you happy at every single point. We can choose happiness because there's opportunities to be happy by everything around us. I look outside today, it's a beautiful, nice sunny day. Not a cloud in the sky. Why am I not happy about that? I moved to Queensland in Australia simply to get that, and here I am enjoying it. That's an amazing thing to be happy about. Think about what you currently do as a job, and not the frustrations of, oh, I don't like my boss, or, I'm not getting that promotion. But think about when you first started applying for that job and you suddenly got it. It was beyond the expectation that you possibly thought. Or think about when you first entered the job market and all you could do was push trolleys or stand in a fast food pizza restaurant. And today, where are you now? Be grateful for that adventure and choose to be happy about the fact that you've done that. And at every stage, you personally, maybe a bit of luck, but you personally have managed to get to where you are today. And look, if you're seriously not happy with something and you are quite self-aware, write it down and change it. Most things in life are reversible. If you've got a job and you don't like it and you quit, chances are you can get a similar sort of job or probably even the same job again if you go back and ask. If you're not happy in a relationship, you can change it. There's not many things in life that are not reversible. If you don't change what's making you unhappy, you can wake up in 10 years and say, I wish I'd changed that 10 years ago. And that 10 years ago is today. And all it is noticing what you're happy about and celebrating it, and what you're not happy about and changing it. So that you're not forever chasing happiness, it's happening right now, if you choose to accept it. So I'm going to sign off. Just a couple of important points before I go. Obviously, like, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. If you enjoy or get anything out of these videos, I'm off to enjoy the day out there. And I'm in the middle of another kind of crazy challenge, which I'll talk about probably in the next couple of weeks, next couple of videos. Again, something I didn't like that I'm changing. And hopefully you guys will see the change and we'll go from there. So I'll see you again next week. Thank you for watching. This has been a King Value video. Have a great day. Bye-bye.